Fear is fueled by a lack of imagination. The antidote to fear is not bravery, it looks more like imagination.
Yeah. So I often find that people are afraid because they just lack the imagination to believe or to see an alternative. So they're afraid of starting a business because they could lose all their money. Well, there are so many other possible possibilities in there that you just need to open up your imagination to imagine other ways of succeeding in that. It's not a binary thing. Very few things in life are binary where either you win or you lose. So I find that people who are very constantly afraid usually have very small imaginations about the possible outcomes. It's first of all, they're usually afraid because they're inheriting or they're taking someone else's worry and making it their own. They're concerned about AI killing everybody. That's a ridiculous idea, but it's out there in Hollywood, and so people can adopt it because they can't really imagine other possibilities.
Mm.
What's the alternative? Um, and so and so when you're afraid, I think you want to work on uh, trying to, upping your imagination to imagine other possible alternatives and possibilities.
Do you think imagination comes from something that is fostered in us from childhood, or either it's genetic, or is it a skill that can be learned?
All the virtues are unevenly distributed throughout the world genetically, but every single one of the virtues can be improved. So we all start off at different levels of enthusiasm, intelligence, empathy, optimism, but every single one of those is a skill that we can also improve. Unlike, say, your height. All right. So these are very malleable um, qualities. There is absolutely a genetic component to them, where some people are, you know, significantly more optimistic than other people. But optimism is a skill that you can learn, and we all can become more optimistic. And I am genetically predisposed to optimism, but I have become even more optimistic by choice. And so you can say the same about whether you're punctual, the same about whether you are empathetic. Certainly, there's unevenly distributed in the beginning, but it's a habit and a skill that we can get better at.
How can we get better at getting more imagination then, I suppose?
Right. So the hardest part of imagination, and I know this from working with many people in workshops and others, the hardest part is letting go of what we expect. Okay, of giving up um, the conventional acceptance, and so little children have that ability because they just don't know. They don't know what is the consensus, and their imaginations seemed to be, for us, incredibly active. And what happens over time is that we get much more reality bound. We get um, trained,
Mm.
educated to believe in the consensus. And so you have to sort of surrender a little bit, make yourself a little bit childlike and gullible and kind of believing something that might seem improbable or impossible or unlikely, because that's what the future is going to be. The future is going to be unlikely. I mean, if you went back 20 years from now and you describe what's happening right now, it would be like, that's totally unlikely. That's never going to happen, right? It's never going to happen that, there was this renegade general in Russia who decided to march on Moscow. That's never going to happen, right? Okay, so it's completely unlikely, and so being able to let go of what we know, and this is a problem. The more people are, the smarter the people are, the more educated, the more difficult of a problem they have with this is letting go what you expect, letting go what the convention is, letting go of what everybody knows, because usually these people have made their successes by knowing what everybody knows, by being able to be reasonable and realistic. And so this is the hard thing about getting better at imagination is being able to let go of this, to understand that you have to be able to be wrong.
Mm,
Okay,
interesting. Yeah.
so that's the problem. Like if you are really dedicated to realism, you're really going to be wrong, but you're not ever going to be right. And so to be really right, you have to be willing to be wrong, and that's hard for people. You have to be willing to say something silly or something ridiculous, something improbable, because and people who are good imagineers will say all kinds of ridiculous things.